We'll be starting in just a moment.
She said she thinks so.
Can you hear my voice?
I hear your voice.
All right.
But is it showing up on her phone?
I don't know.
Is it working?
Is
I want to make sure that
is the captioning working?
I think it's going, yeah. Okay.
All right. Well, welcome everyone. I'm going to call this meeting to order. This is the August 18th, 2022 regular meeting of the Encinitas Planning Commission, and I'm calling it to order at 6:04 p.m. Dina, let's see. I see all 5 planning commissioners are present. I think we can skip the roll call. Say again? You've done that already?
No, I got a little ahead of myself.
Oh, okay. Oh, yes. Well, let's, we'd like to start this meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance, if you'll join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Do we have any announcements? No, I don't think we do. We start each meeting with oral communications. Now, anyone who's here to speak on a topic not on tonight's agenda should pull a white speaker slip if you haven't already, and turn it into our clerk. Dina, do we have any oral communications?
Yes, we do have one this evening, and that's Geraldine Kessler.
Ms. Kessler.
Test, test. I would like to speak about the environmental nightmare housing project on Melba Road that is slated to take down a mature grove of Torrey pines, 173 trees, 30 smaller trees and native shrubs, along with demoing not one, but 3 beautiful historical homes built in 1938 or possibly earlier, all based on the ill-fated density bonus law AB 2345. Recently, the community received the NOP, Notice of Preparation, for this nightmare project. This has only caused stress and anxiety throughout the surrounding community. We have a large population of longtime senior tax-paying members in this community that abuts this Staver property. These seniors simply want to age in place, but are unable to do this because they simply look out their windows and see the trees that will be coming down due to this project. Many of these longtime tax-paying senior residents that will be directly impacted by this project have alerted the city about their multiple concerns with this project and the impacts on their simple aging-in-place lifestyle, but have gotten little to no response to their individual needs. This is not the way Encinitas should be treating the seniors in this community. I find this very disturbing that so many of the members of this community have chosen to leave or are planning to leave the area because of the stress this project brings on. I'd like to point out that Scripps Encinitas, when planning to build, was the model for building in Encinitas. They had multiple meetings with the surrounding community and planning commission. They took constructive criticism made appropriate changes to the plans. This should be the gold standard for building in Encinitas, not what we have been experiencing in the last few years with these greedy, bullying developers. Please help us preserve this sacred, historical last piece of open space that connects old to new Encinitas with soft green infrastructure funding and community funding or a bond measure. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Ms. Kessler. Do we have any changes to the agenda? Steve, you?
I'd like to make a motion to move item 8A to the consent calendar.
Do we have a second?
We do have 2 speakers on 8A, though.
Then we may as well leave it where it is, because if we put it to the consent calendar and it has speakers, it'll be immediately pulled and heard right after the consent calendar.
Unless they're in favor of the project.
It's still going to have to be pulled and have a staff report, or once it's on the consent calendar and it has, somebody pulls a speaker slip, that is pulling the item.
Oh, gosh.
It's, am I correct?
Correct.
I see a nod from Scott. Did we have a second?
I was going to second.
You can.
I'll second.
We'll call the question.
So my suggestion would be that you not move it to the consent calendar because it is a public hearing item, I believe.
Yeah.
So technically.
I'm gonna vote no on it
So
regardless.
technically, you need to hold a public hearing. You may be able to do it efficiently, but it is required to have a public hearing on the item.
Is it the consent calendar?
It technically is, but so it's a little bit wonky. So if something is on the, so any public hearing, technically, you need to allow public comment, et cetera, on the item. But if there is no public comment, then you can certainly approve it immediately, thus it's on the consent calendar. But if anybody wishes to speak on it, you actually need to hold the public hearing.
And they would have the right to pull it from the consent calendar. We're not approving consent calendar right now, we're just moving it.
Well, if you,
If they pull it, then we'll hear it with the staff report. So if they're in favor of the project, they might just let it go on consent.
Use the mic. You're,
If we move it to the consent calendar, they still have the right to pull it from the consent calendar and speak to it. But if they're in favor of the project.
that is correct. So if
they
anybody
may just
wishes
leave it.
to speak on the item, then we would need to pull it at that time. After you've added to the consent calendar, if anybody wishes to speak on it, then it would need to be removed. That would be correct.
They could pull it.
Correct.
Right.
and in essence, they have pulled it by putting in a speaker slip, is that
No,
correct?
they're just saying they'd like to speak to that issue because they think it's up for public discussion. But if they're in favor of the project, we could approve it here in the next 5 minutes and they'd be happy, I would imagine.
Yeah,
So if those people are here to speak in favor of the project and don't wish, if they wish to say nothing, then it would get approved on the consent calendar. That would be correct.
well, in that case, we've got a motion and a second on the floor. Do we have more discussion? It's gonna,
Yes, I'm the newbie. I'll ask the simple question: if we let them speak, leave it off the consent calendar, let them speak, and we vote on it, is the result the same?
pretty much. If we
Yes.
move it to the consent calendar and the speakers say, we choose not to speak, and then we can vote on the consent calendar and we can be out of here in 5 minutes. Well, longer than that. We have reports to make. Honestly, I
suspect the two
yeah, I mean, they're here. This is their day in court. I would like to see this tree.
But they've marked that they're in favor on their speaker slip. We already know that.
I'm gonna vote no.
Did she call the vote?
Yes, we called the question.
Okay.
All right. Looks like with a vote of 2 to 3, the item remains on item 8A, and we will be hearing so next up is the consent calendar. Consent calendar, as we've just discussed, are usually non-controversial items that have, and they can be pulled by the public, they can be pulled by a commissioner. Have we any speaker slips? Has anyone pulled an item from the consent calendar?
They have not.
Does any planning commissioner wish to pull an item?
I'd move to approve the consent calendar.
I'll second that then. So we have a motion and a second on the floor. Let's call the question. All right, so the consent calendar is passed. The next item up on our agenda is the regular agenda. And we only have one item on this, and this is the item 8A, the Melba Drive Heritage Tree nomination. This is located at 1250 Melba Road, and it's, the tree is in the public right-of-way. And Jay, why don't you give us a presentation?
All right. Hello. Good evening, Commissioners. This is, I'm Jay DiCioso, Associate Planner, Project Planner
Jay,
for this project.
I'm going to pause for a moment.
Yeah,
because
sure.
I didn't ask, are there any disclosures
Oh,
on this item?
No.
I visited the site this morning and no other disclosure.
I have a disclosure. I actually have seen this presentation before. I happened to be at the Urban Forest Advisory Committee in interest in the 3 blue gums that came down on 101. And so I sat in the audience and watched this presentation once before. But
Am I correct in believing that this is the exact same presentation?
I assume it may be,
And you'll let us know if there's any new information?
if there's any new information, but I am
Perfect.
reasonably certain.
Or that, I should say it the other way. You'll please let us know if there's any information that is relevant that you have other than what will be presented to you tonight.
I will do that. I don't
Perfect.
believe there is, and I don't feel I've prejudged this case. And I'll pass this on to Jay now.
thank you, Commissioner. Hello, Commissioners. As you know, this property is located at the 1250 Melba Road, the closest property. The tree is actually within the Melba Drive public right-of-way near the southwest corner of that property, near the intersection of Wotan Drive and Melba Drive. The proposal tonight, as you all know, is to consider the nomination of this Monterey cypress for heritage tree status. As some background, 2009, the city adopted the Urban Forest Management Program, and Section 9 of the Administrative Manual outlines the process and requirements for heritage tree nominations. Included within that process is the Urban Forestry Advisory Committee. Takes a shot at the tree, not literally shot, sorry. Speaking off my notes, and reviewed the nomination at the January 22nd, at their meeting of January 22nd. And tonight, the Planning Commission, as part of that process of Section 9, is tasked with approving the nomination and in consideration of UFAC's recommendation. There are 4 findings to be made. It is one of the oldest and largest. It is a tree of a unique form. It has a historic significance, and it is a defining landmark. Only one of these findings have to be made. These findings are found in Section 9. Staff considered UFAC's recommendation and found 2 of the findings to be relevant, one being that the Monterey cypress is one of the oldest in the city, being 84 years old and about 45 feet tall. And the second finding, that it's a unique form because of its height, it's got a wide diameter, being over 30 inches. And there are also it is one of the largest, considering there are also 24 other Monterey cypress trees. The other findings, staff did not find relevant, such as the historic significance, because the historic information provided was not properly vetted by a historian, professional, that was certified accordingly. And as far as landmark, there was not enough information provided to make this finding. The project is also exempt from CEQA, where 15061B, where the decision, where the outcome of the decision would have no possibility that the nomination would have no significant event on the environment. That said, staff is recommending approval of the heritage tree based on the first 2 findings, being the oldest and largest tree of its species in the city inventory, and it has a unique form, having a large diameter. And this concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. Do you have a picture of the tree you could throw
Oh,
up
yeah.
on the screen? Thanks. Maybe just leave that there for now. Are there any questions of staff? Hearing none, I'm going to jump over to public testimony. and I'm going to open public testimony, and the applicant, Courtney Marsh, do you wish to speak? Is Courtney here? No? Okay, well, we have two public speakers, I'm told.
Yep.
Let's hear.
All right. Geraldine Kessler will be followed by Jennifer Hewitson.
Thank you, Jay, for working that up. I appreciate it. I didn't write anything because I think you've heard my spiel many times. So anything that Jennifer says, count me in 10 times over. This tree is beautiful, and the rest of them on Melba are also beautiful. And it just warms my heart that you're going to do the right thing tonight. And the whole community is going to be very excited, my whole neighborhood, my email. And anyway, thank you very much. And 10 times for whatever she says.
Thank you for giving us the time tonight. Jennifer Hewitson, Wotan Drive. I'm here to express my support for the Heritage Tree nomination of a truly historic and majestic tree on Melba Road, the oldest and largest of its species in all of Encinitas, as you've heard. It deserves respect. It is part of the human condition to take most things for granted. I am certainly guilty of that. We tend not to appreciate what we have until we experience a threat of loss. The fate of this tree is no exception. I have lived near and walked Melba Road for many decades. Although I know the trees are a landmark, beautiful, and absolutely create our rural community character, provide shade and habitat for raptors and other birds, I still took them for granted. I did not consider that they might not always be there, nor did I consider the age or the historic importance of these trees. So I am here to appreciate. Thanks for allowing me the time to do that. And to acknowledge that we cannot assume that what we have will remain without our vigilance, especially as development threatens to irreparably alter our older neighborhoods. So in appreciation, thanks to Courtney, who's not here, the Marsh family, for submitting the nomination application and for caring for this old being for many years. Thanks to the city for providing the opportunity, and the Urban Forest Advisory Committee for recommending approval of this heritage tree nomination. And thank you, Jay, also for your help in that great presentation. Encinitas has very few designated heritage trees, yet there are many more incredibly old, valuable, and highly worthy mature trees in our community. I hope we will see more of them honored with the heritage tree designation in the near future. The respect and preservation of these trees is an integral part of appreciation for Encinitas. The heritage, the tree canopy, and our collective quality of life. It takes a village to save a forest. I hope you will approve this nomination, which it sounds like you will do. Your consideration is appreciated. Thank you for the opportunity to speak for the trees.
Thank you. That's it for our speakers tonight. I'm going to close the public comment, and I think we'll jump straight into Planning Commission deliberation. Does anyone have anything to say on this tree?
Yes,
Susan?
I think
Diana,
that-
Fairly Late?
the public speaker said exactly what I would have said. And I'm very proud to be in Encinitas, a city that does respect its heritage trees. And I definitely feel this tree is a special tree.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Question for staff, how many heritage trees do we have?
Currently 2. One is near Moonlight Beach, the tree that gets lit up at Christmas time. I believe that was nominated because it was definitely a landmark. Everybody knows that tree. The second tree is at the corner of Requesa and Devonshire. It's of a unique form. I remember that. Both of these trees also have plaques, so if you're not sure. So we have 2. If approved, this would be number 3.
It's a beautiful tree. Thank you for the process.
So will it also get a plaque then, once it's designated?
Yes,
Not,
without damaging the roots.
So, Jay,
Yes, sir.
aren't the ficus trees in downtown Encinitas, didn't they also have like heritage status?
No, not right now, but I do recall that they were nominated possibly at one point. And I know they are not,
Okay.
I don't recall if that nomination process is finished. I can,
I remember Sheila Cameron was very active in that process.
Yeah.
I thought that had gone through. No?
no.
Huh, wow, only two. There should be more, and this is why I was so excited when I saw this presentation at the Urban Forest Advisory Council, because there are so many trees that are worthy of protection, and this tree is one of them. Only 24 Monterey cypresses, that's mind-blowing. I mean, 15,000 trees, and we only have 24 of these. If you'll recall if you walk in Lucadia, the concrete stamp of the tree, I based that on a silhouette picture I took of the one that used to sit way at the top of the hill. You could see it looking down at Lucadia Boulevard. I didn't even know what kind of tree it was at the time. I know now it was a Monterey cypress, and it's now gone. It was old and diseased and had to come. But this is a lovely tree. We got to protect our old pals like this. So thank you for Ms. Marsh for pushing this through. Thank you both for speaking tonight. I'm going to make a motion that we approve this this designation tonight.
Quick question for staff, or two. These heritage trees, they're always in public right-of-way?
No, they can be, a tree can be nominated on private property, but the property owner has to authorize it.
Okay. And once they have that status, the protection is that they will never be cut down? Is it in perpetuity?
It's in perpetuity, but the property owner can request for the status to be removed. It is also possible to have, if in a dangerous, I'm kind of summarizing here, in a dangerous situation, then and the tree falls, then the heritage tree is gone. But I believe, it could still be recognized.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Excellent. Anyone else have any comments on?
Actually, Commissioner Ryan, Steve Dalton beat you to it.
All righty then. Shall we call the question? Oops. I got my vote in just in time.
I'm going to hit reset and see if it resets. Hang on one sec. Oh. Okay. Got it. So the vote passes unanimously to approve.
Thank you very much, Tina. Thank you, everyone, for coming.
Courtney Marsh, sorry.
Oh, it's too late. I'm so sorry. We just approved it.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you very, very much.
Thank you all.
We move on. The next item on our agenda is any future items added by planning commissioners. Do we have anything like that? Anyone want to add anything to future items? We do have planning commission reports this evening. I think, Susan, you want to jump in first?
We all received written correspondence from the Senior Advisory Committee.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering if we can put that on a future agenda item.
Remind me again, what was the?
They wanted to provide for, as housing is being built, that aging in place, universal design concepts are implemented. Those kinds of concepts would be not just for seniors, although the letter to us came from the Senior Advisory Committee. It would also be good for people with very young children, people who are handicapped, and so on.
Mr. Porter, could you help us, what are the procedures, or Anna, perhaps you're the best, for Commissioner initiated items?
So this would, the letter went to city council directly, and then we later received a request to forward it to the planning commission. But this request would come from city council to planning commission to address what the senior commission had brought forward. So similar to the, trying to think of the name of it right now, we went through our long-term, short-term.
Oh, yes, our work plan.
Work plan, thank you very much. So it would be something that would be placed on there, or maybe ties into one of those items as well.
Okay, so council will add this to our work plan, and we will be addressing this, it sounds like. Well, that was, so it's, we will see it soon enough, right? I have no idea of when. I'll start off, I was at the Urban Forest Advisory Committee. This was the joint special meeting to, geez, it was a little hard to wrap my head around this one. So what was the action item on this? One moment, please. Got too many notes on this. I'm looking for the action item. I feel silly as all get out. I'll jump over here. So this was our native plant policy recommendations. I'm sorry, I'm over here. So we had broken into groups. Joy Lyons was leading this group, and we basically, we had a meeting between, this was Environmental Commission, Urban Forest Advisory Commission, Planning Commission, and Council. And it wasn't attended by every member of every commission, but we had a large group, I think around 8 or 9 people last time. The RE, we had the 2 guys from Quail Gardens, I'll call it San Diego Botanic Garden. I've got it here, I've got too many copies is the problem. Yes, so I was better off going to my notes where, but, so we broke this up into 2 things. There was policy and there was program. And the initial recommendations were a little too loosey-goosey. We didn't know where to go with it. And so we kind of focused on things that would be policy recommendations, where they would be requirements, and program recommendations that would be things after the fact. So an example of that would be, let's see. Almost everything that came through as policy, but you know, we talked about community awards because there was incentives for people to preserve native plants, where we don't have any control of what people do on their private property, but we can create programs to, you know, reward them with, you know, basically, you know, awards. Everyone likes to get their picture taken with the mayor and be recognized in the paper. It's things of that nature. The policy is, we focused a lot on protecting our large trees beyond a certain size. We also discussed the pruning of our trees. The trees are maintained, but it's kind of haphazard. We generally send tree cutters out to trim the trees, and they trim the tree whether it needs trimming or not. And that's not what we need. We need more greenery in our community. We talked about financial incentives. We're still on the recommendation. Jill Bankston, I believe, is the one who's chairing or leading this effort from staff, and we've dealt with her through SB 9. She's a pro. So she's got a big task ahead of her, working with all the various recommendations from various committees, but we will be seeing this. Susan, do you recall when we were supposed to be seeing this again? Or if? I think the subcommittee has now concluded its actions, and now at this point, I believe it'll go first to the Urban Forest Advisory Committee, Environmental, us, Council. So it'll take some time. It's a major piece of policy, and by the time we see it, it probably won't resemble exactly what we saw at the last meeting. But it's in process, and that's my report. Sorry it was so rambling. Anything else? Susan, did you want to say anything
I
about
do
El
have
Camino?
the El Camino Real Corridor
Real,
Task
yeah.
Force update. So we met and August 2nd, and I believe we have a couple of people from industry. We have a couple of community members. We have Joe Mosca leading up for the city council, myself as the planning commissioner, and basically, workshop 1 was done in the fall, very different than workshop 2. We were a little bit, I would say as a total task force, everybody that attended were a little bit surprised that the workshop 2 results were almost exclusively focused on the housing design. And so they seemed a little dismayed that the meeting was that way. And the presentation was a lot about how many affordable units could we possibly maximize on the El Camino Real corridor and where they should be located. We were asked where we thought sites would be best. We were asked if we thought a site that was 1.5 acres in size was a large enough site to accommodate housing. And then I think that, let's see, we were given plan view and section view, which were a little confusing, of an elevated path, or not an elevated path, of a separated bike path, how that would be done with physical barriers such as curbs. I suggested that 1.5 acres is large enough, and it might even be a good idea to have sort of an incremental approach, smaller projects, and a hierarchy of zoning over the length of the corridor. So instead of upzoning the entire thing, which I think our community would be a bit alarmed by, if it was all one zone, I think that upzoning the end, the center, or the, whatever different areas near major grocers or something like that would be a little more acceptable for the public. And there was some talk about views, preserving views. There was some talk about the third workshop, enhancing walkability, awnings on commercial buildings could help that walkability. We talked about whether a site should be 55 plus or some other designation. Site B and Site A were the two sites we were asked to look at primarily, and Site A was smaller. Site B was big enough that perhaps it could have some agricultural or community garden, pocket garden, plazas, something like that, that would be green. We talked about native plants for drought and wildlife support. I think that, there was some information about fees for inspection and maintenance in perpetuity for whatever is done. Because if there's, for example, there are some existing markers along that road, El Camino Real corridor, that are from the mission era. And so some of the stuff that would be done in the public right-of-way would require some upkeep. There was some talk about the fact that a lot of the transit stops are unimproved And so we have to think about what we could do to encourage use of transit by improving those. It was something like only 2 of them right now are improved with shelter and lighting or something. There's 21
101
out
is
of
pretty similar.
23 are not improved, something like that. So
Was there any word about the next meeting? I know there's a scoping meeting on the 30th. A scoping
and the next
meeting?
there is a public meeting. I think Anna probably will tell us about that on her report, but there is a meeting on the 30th from 5 to 7 in the poinsettia room here at City Hall. And there's another task force meeting coming up as well in early September. So I think those will all be on the city website, on the El Camino Real corridor. And I think I covered it all. I'm sorry if I was a little rambling, but the workshop, I did attend workshop 2, and they had these sites, you know, that we played around with. I think Bob was also there. And so those were looked at in terms of this task force, but in some ways, it seemed like the workshop information was, they had a lot of data, and it is on our city website, so if people want to see that, they can access it. But it wasn't something we focused on. They had these 2 questions that they really hit us with, which was, is 1.5 acres a big enough site? And where should we put specific locations for zoning? So our recommendation was a hierarchy of zoning. And I don't know why, but they didn't really bring up the workshop 1 information. The population of our city residents aged 75 to 84 is projected to increase by nearly 32% between 2021 and 2026. So we have a definite need for senior housing. I don't know, they didn't really bring that up. So they did in workshop 1. That was in the result, but not really highlighted in workshop 2. But I believe that this workshop 2 data on all the housing may have been through the LEAP grant.
Okay.
I'm not really sure. That is from HCD, so that would explain that if it was. But I'm not sure. If anyone here knows, I don't know. So
It's going to be an ongoing project. I know specific plans, the Cardiff specific plan took like 7 years.
I'm sorry?
The Cardiff specific plan took a number of years to complete. They're big. It's a big deal. So I expect we'll hear more. The scoping meeting's coming. There's another workshop coming. There's.
I think the entire task force agreed we can improve connectivity, appearance, cohesion, and that the specific plan is going to take a while to work it out. There are too many driveways on El Camino Real for safety. We need new green belts for people and wildlife and for connecting. So there were so much discussed, and yet I sort of have to say I don't know what they'll come up with for strategies and best practices. But I think we should be thinking about strategies and best practices. And I think one of the best things that we did was that we basically looked at everything, you know, on the whole length of it.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Susan. I'm going to move on to Anna Calamusi. Do we have secretary reports?
Yes, I do. One correction I did want to make for the native plant ordinance. It's
Oh.
Jennifer Gates, not Jill
It's Jennifer
Bankston.
Kate Scott.
Yeah. That's okay, both
I-
J names, so it's easy to come on.
feel
Just
so
for the
embarrassed.
record,
I know and love them both, and I know they're radically different people, but,
no problem.
thank you very much for that.
Of course, no problem. Just wanted to make
I
sure.
can heap as much praise on to Jill as I did on virtual Jennifer,
They're
misnamed.
both great. I just want to know, the public to know who to contact.
Thank
for
you
that
very
one
much, Anna,
specifically.
for keeping me on point.
No problem. So the two announcements that I wanted to make was that the Maria Village Appeal project was denied, and the project was approved on August 10th. And then the the Clark Development Housing Element Site project did receive 2 appeals, one by Western National Group, who was the applicant, and then the other by Clark Development Action Group, which is represented by Craig Sherman, the attorney. And that is all I have to provide.
That'll be interesting. Any idea how soon those might be heard by council?
I believe it's scheduled for September 14th.
Yep, I knew they wouldn't delay. Well, thank you very much. If there's nothing further from anyone, I'm going to call
wait.
this meeting closed.
I have a question.
Oh, yes, of course.
Are the appeals from Western National and the Clark organization, are those available on the website?
They are not available on the website, but the public can request those appeals. They are public record.
Okay.
And they will be released as part of by September 7th, I'm guessing. when
Correct.
The council agenda goes out.
So if you don't ask for it, it will be part of the package for the city council agenda? Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. And that comes out 8 days in advance of the city council meeting? I'm just more for me and also whoever's watching.
Yep, so it would be 6 days in advance. So
6
it's
days.
the Thursday before.
Did the Clark Avenue Action Group, did they have a reason for their appeal?
It is my understanding that they brought the same points brought to Planning Commission in the appeal.
Okay.
I haven't read it for specifically, but that is what my understanding is.
Well, we have a process in place for that, and I'll be watching that with great interest. Do we have anything? Last chance?
In talking, in talking to Commissioner Ryan in advance, I did attend the workshop 2, El Camino Workshop 2, that Commissioner Sherrod mentioned. So, and I will be attending, the other workshop on the 30th.
Yeah.
And then I will clarify that the 30th is a scoping meeting for the environmental impact report. So it's not a workshop.
Can you tell us what is a scoping meeting for an environmental workshop?
It's for to bring up any potential issues that need to be addressed in the environmental impact report. So it's the beginning of the EIR process, which is the environmental impact report. So it's where you say, please address traffic, please address
Interesting.
trees, things like that. So that's step 1.
Well, if you enjoy getting in the weeds, it sounds like the exact meeting to be at. I'm probably going to go. I think it'll be a hoot. But I'm a nerd, as everyone knows. Is there nothing else? I'm going to call this meeting adjourned until our next meeting of September 1st. Is that correct? Our next regular meeting, September 1st. It is 6:46 p.m. Thank you, everyone watching online.